Yeah, so thanks for taking the time to talk to me about just you in general and your album and your progress so far. I wanted to start with the name of the album, In Praise of Shadows. I read the short story in preparation from this from Tanizaki, and it seems thematically there's a lot of similarities between the book and your album in terms of exploring light and dark and the contrast between them and how they both work together. Is that something that you consciously aim for when you create the album?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I found the book really inspiring because, um, I think when you listen to a lot of music, sometimes you feel you can be, uh, well, I guess a better way of putting it is that, sometimes I find uh, a lot of fresh inspiration comes from stuff that isn't music, if that makes sense. And when I was reading through Tanazaki's book, there's a lot in there that felt very musical to me, despite it not being a book about music. It's like a lot of kind of spiritual and aesthetic things and themes. And I think, yeah, one of the biggest things that really stuck with me after my like fifth or sixth time reading the book was just that there was this, you know, concentration on the space. And in the same way, I think I try and I've been trying more and more to kind of focus on the space between the notes rather than the notes, and the the uh, the space in design and the silence in music. And yeah, one of the big things for me about the album was trying to kind of celebrate darkness, metaphorically as well as aesthetically. Like really trying to come back to things in my life that were really hard to deal with at the time, but that and actually ended up teaching me kind of very valuable lessons or taking me through to like a better place. Um, and so yeah, that was really like what the music was about for me, was kind of trying to find this balance between light and dark, and seeing value in both, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's probably my favorite album this year, and
Thank
listening
you so much.
to it, it's all good. And listening it to this and even your earlier EP, Swan Baby, I think they're both incredibly introspective, and there's a lot of uh, sort of emotional output there in terms of you talk about your insomnia. There's a lot of talk about stuff that you feel you should have said in certain moments. And for me, it seems like that takes a lot of confidence and being centered within yourself to be able to put that out to the public and be able to put that in your music. Is it something that just comes naturally to you, or do you think it's something that you have to really reach for in terms of finding the confidence and finding the ability to sort of put it out there and open yourself up like that?
I always find this like a tough question because I know that it does take confidence to, yeah, talk about these things openly and be vulnerable. But yeah, I think it does come naturally. I think maybe it does come naturally to everyone and we just suppress it to like varying degrees. But that's just my take on it. Some things are harder to say than others, like it was hard to write the song about my sister because that felt so personal, and it's a very tender subject to find the right words for. But a lot of stuff that I wish I had said, like as you put it, or a lot of things that I felt in the past. Um, I think that comes very naturally because that's what music is for. It's just expression at the end of the day. And I had something really good the other day that was like music music makes you feel feelings, and lyrics help you think thoughts. So songs help you to feel thoughts, and that's really all it is. It doesn't necessarily feel like I'm putting myself out there when I'm writing. I'm just kind of expressing what's going on inside. You know, it's like an inner dialogue that I'm putting out there, and then I guess the strange part is that people end up hearing it. So I don't think about it when I'm writing really. It's only really when it's time to put music out that I'm like, whoa, I can't believe I'm about to say this to like hundreds of people.
Or millions if you look at your Spotify streams. It's people all over the world.
Or it's one person a million times. I don't know.
Well, at least you've got a super fan if that's the case. But do
It's
you
probably my mom. That's okay.
you always got to have a supportive mum, makes all the difference.
It does.
In terms of you mentioned it there in terms of it's sort of vocalizing your inner monologue when you write the songs. Emotionally, how do you feel when you're writing the songs and crafting the songs compared to when you're listening to them back? Is there a
Good
completely
question.
different thought process that goes through your head and a completely different emotive release that comes from writing compared to listening to your own music?
Yeah, I guess sometimes when you're writing, it can feel really expressive and really, like you're really getting in touch with something. But other times, writing and producing just almost feels like a game, like a kind of challenge. You're sort of, it's like for want of a better word, it's like a hobby, isn't it? You're kind of, I'll be just obsessing over the like musicality and the detail and like the way the harmony is shifting, and I'll be trying to kind of like challenge myself. Um, but sometimes when you hear it back, I'll be like kind of struck anew with this kind of appreciation for what I was feeling in the moment when I first penned the lyrics, or when I first kind of sang melody that like felt emotive to me at the time. It's like especially when I hear when I listen back to the first demo, or when I hear the like mastered track for the first time, it's like it can be very cathartic realizing, something that you didn't have yesterday, you suddenly have. It's the song that kind of didn't exist before and you just made it. And that is a really kind of special, beautiful feeling. But I don't know which I prefer, like writing or finishing. I think maybe what's fun about music is that you can, I don't love one more than the other. So there's this constant cycle of like being excited to start something and then being excited to finish something. And that kind of keeps me going.
Yeah, that creates a bit of drive and keeps you releasing new material, making new material.
Exactly. Otherwise, like if I truly felt satisfied every time that I started something or every time that I finished something, I would either never finish something or I'd never start something. I would just be kind of, I would have written my one piece of music maybe and then just like called it
All
quits.
that day, yeah.
And it's the
Well,
same, I feel the same way about listening to other people's music, you know, even more so actually, like a sort of, it's really fulfilling, and there's nothing like music in the world, but, I still listen to music every day. Like, yeah, there's still an appetite for it.
I'm speaking of which, when you, as you said, listen to other people's music and you've got a big appetite for it, are there any other artists out right now or anyone that you've heard lately that you've really drawn inspiration from or that you just purely enjoy listening to as an artist?
With the album, it was a lot of like stuff from the 2000s, to be honest, like Bjork and Timberland and Burial and Sade. Maybe she's a little bit more like the
Earlier.
90s, but yeah. Um, but in terms of people that are around at the moment, I mean, just like anyone, I find Frank Ocean and Bonnie Iver incredibly inspiring musicians in their own right. They're both just kind of incredible at what they do, and I think even more so than that, they just seem very like connected to music in a powerful way. Like
Yeah.
it's not necessarily that I'm saying they like know their stuff. I just feel like
you can tell when you hear them sing and when you hear them vocalize that there's a deep connection with what they're actually saying and the music they're putting out.
Yeah, exactly. And I really appreciate that. That's what drew me to music in the first place, you know. I mean, I find all my friends really inspiring. My friend Luke, he currently makes music under the name Lucy Lou, and he's just like an incredible songwriter and producer, and has just such an incredible way with like lyrics and chords, especially. Um, that has always really kind of driven me to be better myself and find better lyrics and find deeper meaning and you know uh, so Luke and my friend Maxwell Owen, he actually is the one that put me onto Burial, and he I don't see much of him anymore, sadly, because we're not really living in the same place. But every time he puts out a tune, like he's just an incredible producer. Like I really am kind of blown away by his attention to detail every time, and that's something I think I strive for. You know, like making music that's really immersive and really like pulls you in, like a cinematic experience, not just a kind of like, you know. I think I used to be really into the idea of like how little can I use, like, you know, just
Yeah.
guitar, bass, drums, and voice. And I think more and more I'm quite excited about, you know, building like a world around the song a little bit. And yeah, he really inspired that.
Oh, cool. Because I was going to say your album has a nice mixture between there's certain songs where your vocals really sort of stand out, and in terms of the music behind it, it's a bit more minimalistic. But then something like Oil Slicks, it's a lot more full on, for lack of a better term, compared to a lot of other songs on the album.
Yeah.
And there's probably my favorite song of the album, to be fair. But
Thank you.
there's a big don't know what to call it, new age jazz sort of influence in the music. I saw a Guardian profile from a few years ago. They called you the South London Sinatra.
Oh God,
Um, how do you feel when you
that's
sort
so
of
cringy.
yeah, well, that answers the question. I was going to say, how do you feel when you get labeled some of these monikers, or maybe get put into a category like new jazz or fringe jazz or something like that?
Well, first of all, with that one, it's tricky because I have so much respect for Sinatra. You know, like
Mm,
I grew up listening to him in the car. Is one of the like earliest memories I can even think of is my dad listening to Frank Sinatra in the car, and he he's just a better singer than I'll ever be. You know, he treated his voice like an instrument with discipline. And so when people throw things around like, you know, he's the Sinatra of London or whatever it was, it's kind of like it makes me feel like maybe they aren't aren't really tuned into what I'm doing, because it makes me think if they were, then surely they wouldn't say something like that.
yeah.
But I mean, it's a huge compliment though, and whoever wrote that I'm sure they had my best interests at heart when they were writing that phrase. Um, but to answer your question, I feel as though I'm not really a jazz musician at all. I've never really like studied jazz. I'm not that you have to study jazz to know how to play it, but I think jazz is just uh, one kind of one element of music that
Yeah.
I'm really drawn to, and it's not the whole thing. I've always loved jazz, and I really appreciate it, and I'm always trying to like learn from it. Especially guys like Wayne Shorter and Miles and Tony Williams, to name a few. Herbie is amazing too, but like, yeah, I don't know. I almost see myself as honestly more of a rock musician or a pop musician or something. Like, I don't really have a inkling of the same dedication to jazz, or not the talent that some of my peers have who are actual jazz artists. So I guess what I'm trying to say is when people kind of label me as jazz,
Mm.
I feel a little bit boxed in, and at the same time, I kind of feel like it's taking away from the platform that could be given to like actual jazz musicians, you know, like my friend Nabaya Garcia, or you know, the band Coco Roco, or you know, Sons of Kemet, just people that are actually making jazz who like really deserve that recognition. Moses Boyd, you know, but it's cool. It's cool if people are hearing, you know, jazz sentiment in my music. That is definitely a cool thing because I'm definitely like putting it in there, you know. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I think yeah, to be honest, it sounds like you're showing a great deal of modesty and sort of
thanks.
groundedness there. But um, I know now you're living in Atlanta and
Yeah.
you were originally from London. How do you find do you find that stuff there or stuff where you're currently inspires you differently when it comes to your writing? Because a lot of it is very introspective. So how much of that do you think is down to the environment, and how much of that do you think is just down to your personal experiences?
Hmm. I think I've always been a little bit like that, you know, like all the music I've ever written has been quite inward.
Mm.
Um, but I definitely do feel maybe more of a freedom to be inward when I'm here. I think when I'm in London, I feel quite conscious of like stepping on the toes of my peers, and I maybe put too much concentration into like not trying to sound like anyone that I know, you know, and it becomes like a trap. Um, because I'm not actually thinking about who I am. I'm thinking about like who I'm not, you know.
Mm.
So I think when I'm here, it's nice to feel that kind of space from London. I remember that I'm just a person that exists in the world rather than being like someone that belongs to like a particular scene in a particular area of the world. So um, having that little bit of distance, I think it reminds me of like who I am a bit, you know, because I'm kind of not in isolation. I'm around my partner and my friends here, but like I'm just kind of not as tethered to like a particular style or something.
Yeah,
So
it's
yeah, I
more of a
feel kind of less restricted here or something. You know, I find myself doing things musically that I wouldn't probably do when I'm home, for better or worse.
sounds like you feel more of a sense of just musical freedom because you're not attached to what you've previously done or what you're previously involved in over the years.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel I'm like kind of looking over my shoulder less and just writing from the heart rather than like second guessing myself, I guess.
Sweet. Um, so I know you recorded on that album and obviously released it in the midst of a pandemic. How did
Yeah.
you find going through that process? Because I'm imagining a lot of it would have had to be done in bits and pieces with people sending music over rather than being able to be in a studio with a full band and a full set of producers and musicians there with you.
It was kind of it was only really the last like quarter of the album that really felt that
Okay.
way. I did a lot of the kind of groundwork, yeah, the year before the lockdown. So I was writing a lot here in Atlanta when me and my partner was still long distance, and I was coming and seeing her for like a couple of weeks at a time, and just writing, you know, on the floor of her apartment with just plugged straight into the laptop. So a lot of that stuff was recorded, and then I spent a little bit of time with the band right before lockdown happened. It might have even been before we kind of even knew what the virus was, but I don't remember. But it was definitely before quarantine. Um, so maybe like January or February of 2020. But we did all the bits that we needed together then. So really all that was left to do after quarantine was like stuff that I could do by myself at home and mixing. So it was kind of a shame not being able to like attend the mixing sessions or like, meet the women that were mixing and mastering the album, because that would have just been a really cool experience to sort of see how they work. And like, it did get a bit frustrating having to email back and forth when, if you're in the room, it's something you would take 2 seconds to say, like, oh, could we try it this way? Or like, oh, I like what you did there, but can we do this? But when it's emails, it just took a bit
Yeah.
longer, but it was actually okay. We did the bulk of it before the virus, and I think really the virus mostly affected like how we could do kind of video and stuff. That was like a lot harder than it should have been. But we managed. It was okay.
Sweet. Well, seems like hopefully stuff's getting closer and closer to normality again. So
Yeah, fingers
you
crossed, eh?
looking forward to being able to actually play live in front of the audience and
Yeah, I can't wait. I love playing live so much. I always feel so grateful, and I love playing with the guys in the band. They're like my favorite musicians. We all have such a sort of shared connection and experience, and just love for music. So yeah, I can't wait. And we've been able to play together a tiny bit.
I think I
Just
saw your late night sessions. Was that at
mm,
Battersea? Yeah, that
yeah,
was pretty cool. Yeah.
thanks, man. Yeah, but it's different, like playing in front of people. You get kind of like instant feedback, and you kind of uh, bounce off of the energy in the room, which is really special. So I can't wait for that. That's going to be really cool.
Sweet. I'm wary of taking up too much of your time, so I
Oh,
don't really have many more questions. But if there's anything you want to promote, or just say what you're up to in the future now.
yeah. Well, like you said, this late night special film just came out, which is just like an hour long performance, really, like with no audience, but it's like a set. Um, and it was broadcast originally in February, but it just came out in full just on YouTube. So you can go check that out or listen to the EP version on streaming services. And yeah, if you enjoy it, then yeah, I guess come and try and see us live whenever we're next able to play.
Do you think you're going to do a tour in the US first, since you're based there, or back in the UK?
We've got a headline show in London in August. I mean, fingers crossed that'll go ahead.
Yeah.
And I think we're doing like 2 or 3 festivals around Europe as well. But yeah, the next tour will be in the US sometime this year. Fingers crossed. As long as
Yeah.
the vaccine rollout continues going well and there aren't any more like crazy surges and cases and stuff. So yeah, it should be cool.
Sweet. Well, fingers crossed again. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
Of course,
Hopefully you get to go touring soon. Hopefully when you come to London, yeah, we can come out and actually see you on your headline tour.
that'd be awesome.
That'd be great. But yeah, again, thanks so much for your time. Really, really good
Thanks for
album you put
having
out,
me.
honestly.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Really appreciate it.